Nosey Nancies is a true crime podcast based in Austin, Texas. If you are sensitive to any of the trigger words, this is not the podcast for you. Due to its graphic nature, listener discretion is advised.
Somewhere between the sandy and again. Well, I was just pretending that it's all just a dream. A little condescending to believe in it. I'm getting the notion that I'm going all in.
Hey, all you nosies, I'm Alequah.
And I'm Jasmine, and welcome to Nosey Nancies, Season 2, Episode 5.
I don't know if you're like me, where I just now started, watching the news or listening to the news. I think it's because, once you start paying attention to the news, it's a maturity that you're owning up to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, before, I just didn't give a shit, right? But now I, actually do, and I guess it's because I'm getting old. Did you hear about the mass shooting that happened in Austin?
I did not.
You don't know about this?
Honestly, I don't watch the news except on TikTok. I follow that fish from SpongeBob, the breaking news fish. And he has shit that, I don't see anywhere else, but it's all devastating.
I love that you get your news from a fish, a cartoon, an AI fish.
Yeah. He's got the important facts.
Well, clearly. No, so on Tuesday, there was a guy whose name was Shane James. He was 34 years old, and he lived in San Antonio, okay? And he was a previous, ex-military. The military, I think they kicked him out because of his mental health issues. He ended up killing his mom and dad Monday night. They think between Monday night and Tuesday morning, he killed his parents.
God.
Yeah, and then he drove to Austin from San Antonio and shot up I think it was a junior high. I don't know what grade school it was, but I know that it was a school. There he shot a security guard or a security officer at the school, and they called the cops. And this was this timeline was in the morning, so this was probably around 10:30, I think. This is all South Austin. I don't think the security guard died, but he did wound him. And then he drove to a subdivision in South Austin, and he ended up shooting and killing this handyman that was sitting in his truck outside of this house. He was on a call for this woman's house, and she ran out, and I think he ended up shooting her too, but I don't think it was critical. But the guy in the truck, he did end up passing away. So they called the cops there. So that was 11:30, and by this time they still didn't connect that they were
the same person.
Right. Sometime a little after that, I don't know exactly the timeline because I'm just going through I'm going on memory. The APD got a phone call about from this man who was watching on his home security system. Somebody trying to break into his house, and he called the cops because his wife and his disabled daughter were in the house, and he ended up breaking in. He ended up killing both the mom and the daughter.
What the fuck?
He shot a police officer as well, who was a detective who was trying to thwart his escape or whatever. I think he ended up killing 6 people and wounding a handful of others. I know there was a guy on a bicycle. Oh no, there was a woman. I think during the time when the handyman was shot and killed, there was a woman also walking her baby in a stroller, and he shot and killed her as well.
Jesus Christ.
No, I know. It's what the fuck? What causes people? So here's what's really fucked up about the whole situation. I mean, it's all fucked up, obviously. But he was I believe he was either on house arrest or he was previously on house arrest and he cut off his monitor. And I believe that it's only a misdemeanor. I think what happened was that he was on house arrest a couple of like in 2022, and he cut off his ankle monitor, and that was only a misdemeanor, which I think they should have thrown him back in jail.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the whole point, is to make sure that they're not stepping out anywhere else. So if you're cutting that shit off, for it to just be like a little slap on the wrist, like, hey, don't do that again, that's ridiculous.
No, so the mother and the daughter that were killed in the house invasion was Catherine Short. She was 56 years old, and Lauren Short, she was 30 years old. Ugh.
Damn.
I know. After he shot and killed Catherine and her daughter Lauren, he ran off, and they pursued him in a car chase, which he ended up crashing his car, and they like obtained him from there. But that was at Highway 45 and 1826. So this was going back towards San Antonio. Isn't that fucked up?
That's fucking ridiculous. The fish didn't mention any of this to me.
Yeah, because the fish is bullshit. But I want to know what makes people, because this is like a reoccurring thing where it's like mass shootings, and I just don't. Yeah. I want to know what makes people do that.
I mean, obviously, not everybody has the capability, but I would hope that if it ever got to the point for me where just my mental stability was that bad that I thought about hurting other people, I would kill myself rather than kill other people. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand.
Right. Yeah, and I don't think we ever would understand or ever will understand, because we're not here to, like, we don't want to kill anybody.
Right,
you know what
exactly.
I mean? We've never wanted to hurt other people, like, physically.
Yeah,
physically.
Emotionally.
No, I mean, we just don't have that. It's just not in our nature. And I think that's what, kind of, I don't know. I think people must be predispositioned for that kind of like violent behavior.
I mean, I think so, right? Obviously, there's some structure that either, dissolves or whatever, that it takes place in like people's morality. Or maybe it never develops in the first place.
God, my heart goes out to their family, and I'm sure there's going to be like the family of all the victims, because there were 6.
Yeah.
So I hope, that our community can kind of like come together
and support them.
Yeah. Why do you think there's an increase of mass shootings?
Now more than ever, I think that like mental health issues are a lot more widely accepted, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
But still, it is difficult for people with those issues who don't have the income to seek help. So even though it's like people are more understanding of like depression and suicidal behavior and stuff like that, I mean, those people are still struggling to get treatment.
Right. We don't have great access to mental health care.
Yeah. And I think too.
Or health care at all.
Yeah. Or health care of any sort. Everything's expensive as shit. Todd and I were just talking about this the other day. Even for us, like, that's why this episode is coming out late, or we're at least recording it later, because we're both having to work double time because it's the holidays. And I'm having to work Saturdays now throughout the holidays, and you're having to work even more throughout the holidays, and it's like now there's just hardly any free time at all. So there is no work-life balance. You're literally working to pay your bills in majority of people's cases. Like, there is no free income to live a life or get to have experiences.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of that don't require a college degree doesn't offer health insurance. You know what I mean? So
yeah, exactly.
It's fucked up.
Like, even if you did have health insurance, is your job the type of job that's going to let you get off to go to your doctor's appointments? Some places, like, they're like, no, your schedule is this, so you have to conduct your personal business around the work schedule. You know, I mean, I've worked at jobs like that, and it's like, when are you supposed to take care of yourself?
Heaven forbid I ever get diagnosed with something, because look, I'm going to go purposely walk in front of a city bus so that they hit me and I get the fucking insurance. Get money from that so I can get, so they
can get taken care of.
Yeah, could take care of my ass.
Yeah, some people can't even afford, you know, to go to the doctor and pay the copay. Oh, I mean, people are living fucking paycheck to paycheck, just paying like rent and utilities.
I know. I go to the cardiologist every year, and I just pay it out of pocket.
Fancy girl.
And it's not. Yeah. Look at me. Having to see a cardiologist at the age of 36. That's when I started. No, I think it was like 35. I turned 35, and I was like, yeah. I turned 35, and I was like, I am dying. My heart is I have a heart problem. Did I ever tell you about this? So when I was like, I guess it was in 2018, I started getting like, you ever get that feeling where like your heart like skips a beat?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's called a pre-ventricle contraction, and it's actually an extra heartbeat. And apparently, this is what my cardiologist told me. Everybody gets them, and it's super normal. But I was getting them like all the time, and it felt like every like minute I was having one.
Really?
And yeah, and I thought I was gonna literally, I thought I was gonna die. This is like way too much for one little heart to take. Yeah. You know what I mean? So. I went and I got I wore like a heart monitor for 2 weeks. It was like in between my tits. It was really uncomfortable. The tape was irritating my skin. And then I got an echocardiogram where it's like basically a sonogram of your heart, and you could see your little heart muscles like thumping around, and which gave me anxiety right there anyways. I was like, fuck this. I don't want to look at them. I'm like sitting there with my eyes closed because I don't want to see my heart. I don't want to like see myself.
I don't want to watch it beat.
Yeah, right. I don't want to see myself like die on this table, right?
Yeah.
So I did that, and then so I go in after 2 weeks for my results, and she sits me down and she goes, okay, well, your heart's good. Your echocardiogram was great. Nothing interesting was happening. And I was like, okay, I guess. And then she was like, now these are called pre-ventricle contractions. She goes, everybody gets them. You just are so in tune with your body that you feel them. And I go, oh, really? I go, do you get them? And she goes, no. I was like, God damn it, dude. Of course. I was like, oh, of course you don't.
And no.
She goes, no. It's my fun little story. So I have to go see her this next month. Should we get into this?
Let's get into it.
Okay.
So I'm going to be talking to you. I'm going to be telling you about...
Tell me something good.
It won't be good, but I'll tell you something.
Okay.
So I'm going to be telling you today about the murders of Phyllis Butto and Martha Reed. So in the 1970s, Austin pretty much like doubled in size, kind of overnight almost. There was just a lot of change in the culture that was taking place. And it drew in just waves of people.
Kind of like what happened in like 2012.
Yeah.
Or 2010.
Yeah, exactly. So like the shifts drew in like just a massive amount of people in a short amount of time. And all of a sudden, more people, more opportunities for crimes to take place. Yeah. So in 1975, APD began to witness more of what they dubbed faceless crimes.
And what does that mean?
So faceless crimes were just crimes committed without witnesses or many clues, and the perpetrator just pretty much could never be identified and would slip into the sea of anonymous people
Right.
because they never could talk to anybody who could pinpoint exactly who it might be. 2 crimes took place in 1975. The first was Phyllis Butto.
Okay.
These crimes are eerily similar. And
All right.
I'll mention a little not so fun fact near the end that makes just kind of all the Austin cold cases that took place around this time kind of a little more interesting.
Yeah, like there might be like a serial killer. Not to interrupt you too much, but like, I mean, I believe the first cold case I did in Dallas, like the same thing was happening then. And I think it was like in 1976.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally possible that all these could be
related.
In Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Austin to Dallas, that's on I-35.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna be really interested in how these were carried out, because if they're similar, then maybe we could help close the case.
Actually, they are pretty similar to the first one that you did.
Oh shit.
So I'll start off with Phyllis Butto because she was the first. So Phyllis was a 21-year-old apartment manager living with her husband, Juan Butto Jr., who was a first-class airman. They lived on Bannister Lane together. Juan had gotten off work and came home for lunch. He was accompanied by his brother, Michael. And upon arriving, Juan called out, to Phyllis, who was at home. And he didn't hear her respond. He went up to the curtain that they had separating the living room area from the bedroom, expecting her to maybe be sleeping. So when he peeled the curtain back, he found his wife in bed, naked except for some green socks that she had on, covered in blood.
Oh, no.
The autopsy report had concluded that Phyllis was killed somewhere between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. She'd been stabbed nearly a dozen times in her arms, chest, back, and in her neck. Her pinky was nearly severed with the knife as she covered herself defensively.
Oh, no.
She had a stab wound in her back, so I'm assuming that she was stabbed originally maybe in the back and then fell on the bed and turned over, but there was a stab wound in her back that was so strongly afflicted that it nearly created an exit wound on her chest.
Ew, what the fuck?
Yeah.
No.
The fatal stab wound was made in her throat, coming through from the left side and hitting the back right, nicking her jugular.
Oh.
The murder weapon was determined to be a hunting knife. There was nothing found at the scene. And even though she was naked, there wasn't any evidence of any sexual assault. There was no forced entry. So the police kind of believed that she knew her killer. They had a heavy focus at first on Juan, her husband. His arrival time to work did put him home for a big block of the estimated window of time that she might have died. So 2 days after the murder, Lieutenant Jordan was pretty confident that the killer would be found, and he gave a statement declaring that they would be able to lock up who did this within a week or two. They had several people set to take polygraph tests, and although one person, which I never really found out who, but one person exhibited partial guilty knowledge.
What does that even mean? Partial?
To me, that means that they failed enough questions that
It was suspicious.
They may or may not know something, but because there was kind of a lack of motivation and witnesses, I'm not sure how they ruled one out, but they eventually did. The crime just kind of, they really didn't have anywhere else to go. And as crime in Austin continued to skyrocket and they had to kind of shift their focus, Phyllis's case kind of fell by the wayside.
Right.
For quite some time.
As so many have and do and did.
Yeah, exactly. So several months later, on June 23rd of 1975, Martha Reed, who also was an apartment manager.
Oh.
25 years old, was at her newly acquired apartment with her mother and her 6-month-old son. She had only gotten this apartment literally like a few weeks prior. Her husband, who also was a United States Airman, was at work. She was waiting for him to be discharged, and he was going to be discharged on July 1st. So she had just gotten this apartment. Her mom's there helping her with her brand new baby. Right. And she's awaiting her husband's return home.
That is so weird that they both are apartment managers.
Yeah.
And that their husbands did the same thing.
Both airmen. Yeah.
Yeah.
On July 23rd at around 11 a.m., there was a knock on the apartment door. Martha went and answered the door and returned to the room where her mom was, explaining that there was a prospective tenant at the door and she was just going to show him an apartment real quick. It was in the apartment building that they were living in.
That's how we did it.
And and she grabbed the keys. And she said, it shouldn't be any more than a few minutes and I'll be back. Her mom's sitting there, like an hour's passed and Martha still hasn't come back. Her mom didn't want to leave the baby or take the baby out to go look for her. So she flagged down a neighbor, a guy named Bill, and asked if he would go look around for Martha. So around 12:15, about an hour and 15 minutes after she left, Bill entered a vacant apartment. Immediately in the entryway, he saw blood. And he followed the trail back where he found Martha on the floor, on her knees, with her head and upper torso slumped against the bed that was still, I'm assuming it was a furnished apartment. She had also been stabbed 14 times.
Oh my God, that's what the fuck?
All the stab wounds were above the waist, and she had her throat slashed to the point where it was almost cut all the way through.
Ooh, ugh.
Martha, she was fully clothed. She didn't appear to have been sexually assaulted at all, so these weren't sexually motivated crimes, but obviously they were crimes of passion,
Yeah. So whoever did this was had something beef with their mother or somebody, or maybe their wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, something. Clearly there was a hatred for women.
For women.
So unlike with Phyllis, because Phyllis didn't have any witnesses, Martha did have people at the apartment complex hear her screams. They told police, They told police. Nobody did anything? Well, they told police that they just assumed that it was children playing at the pool, at the apartment complex pool, and they just really didn't think anything of it.
This is what I don't understand, because I don't know about you, but every time I've gone to look for a new apartment, I've never gone to somebody else's apartment. I've always gone to the office.
Right.
So that's really weird.
That they would come to... Yeah, who directed him to her apartment?
Yes. Especially if she's not, working at the time. I mean, it seemed like she was... if she was at home...
I would assume this was, around 11 a.m. that someone came knocking, so... I don't know if it was, a lunch break, and she maybe, left a sign, if you need anything, maybe. I'm in this apartment, or whatever. I'm not sure.
Maybe.
It is interesting that they would come directly to her apartment door.
Right. If that's the case, like, maybe that happened to Phyllis too. Maybe this was around the same time each time. I mean, they do seem like they are connected just by the victims' careers alone.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And how they were both killed.
There was one neighbor who was living underneath the apartment that Martha was murdered in. He heard enough that he did kind of go upstairs and take a look around. He knocked on the door. He didn't hear anything. He didn't see anything. So he just went back home. A few minutes.
Imagine if he would have opened that door.
I know, right? A few minutes later, though, he heard somebody coming down the stairs, and he opened his front door to look out. He said he saw a younger, light-skinned black man ascending the steps, but he really, it didn't trigger any red flags at the time because the man was so calm and unhurried. Like, he just like he was just leaving the house to go to the store. Like, he wasn't in a rush. And he didn't see any blood, which to the police, they would just kind of were like, okay, well, neither of the sinks in the apartment had been used to wash anything off.
So this person would have had to have had some kind of
they would have, yeah, they would have definitely had some sort of blood on them.
There's been studies with people who, like serial killers and psychopaths, people who are psychopaths, their heart rate is always lower than the normal person. So they stay calm when other people would be freaking the fuck out.
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
I mean? So I mean, just because he's calm, that's not I don't think
indicator
that's an indication. Yeah.
The description that was given to police of this guy was maybe 25 or younger, light-skinned black man, about 280 pounds, with a short afro hairstyle and sideburns extending past his ears. And he did have a mustache also. And he was somewhere between 5'7" and 5'9".
If he saw him enough to notice that he had a mustache, that means he saw the front and the back of him, right?
What?
I guess when you told me that he saw him walking away, walking down the stairs.
No, he was walking down the stairs. So he was coming off the second floor. This guy's apartment is pretty close to the stairwell. Probably got just a good look at the front of him, I would imagine. I mean, I guess he could have seen the back of him.
Well, I mean, if he saw the front of him, then I would think, if you just stabbed somebody, blood splatters.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And I would assume that this guy would have, blood splatter on his face, on his chest, on his, on his hands,
right,
at the very least.
Anywhere.
Especially if the police said that there was the sinks weren't used. Although I don't know how
to wash anything off.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how they would know that, but maybe.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
The sinks were dry in the apartment. No water had been turned on.
Yeah, but how do you know that? Because you could just turn on a sink and then just wipe it down, can't you?
Probably might not have been all the way planned out because, how would you know if she would be available to take you or to which apartment you would go? But maybe they could have. I mean, depending on how much they had thought it out.
I'm just gonna trust that the forensics guys knew what they were talking about with the sink.
Well, also it was 1975, so how hard were they working?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But so police did release the composite sketch of the suspect 2 days later. And they started a line of questioning with different apartment managers around Austin. Police did find out, this is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
So police did find out that about a week before Martha's murder, another young apartment manager, whose name is unknown, was approached.
Another one?
Yeah, was approached by a man who was asking about one-bedroom apartments. Now, this man, she said, didn't really seem like he was serious. And she started getting like kind of a really bad feeling because he went from asking about 1-bedroom apartments to suddenly he was like, what about a 3-bedroom apartment? So she just kind of was like, okay, I'll go show you, what we have available. She walked him to an apartment and she unlocked the door, but because he had given her that kind of bad vibe, she was like, you go in and take a look and I'll just stay out here. So,
good for her.
Yeah, right? So she said that she saw him walk to the back bedroom and he stayed there for a long fucking time. She knew that he was back there so long because he was kind of hoping that she would come check on him.
Right.
So instead what she did was she called out. She saw some other lady walking around. She called out to the lady, like, making small talk about the weather or whatever. Just letting him know that, like, there's people out here.
Letting him know that she's not also going to go in there. Like,
right, exactly.
Bitch, I'm not going into this fucking apartment with you, idiot.
Yeah.
Creepo.
So the man then came out of the apartment, didn't even look at her. Started immediately walking away. She started acting like, started asking, like, are you interested? He just completely ignored her.
No, that was him, dude. I bet you anything that was him.
So the description that she gave was that it was a younger, light-skinned black man who did match the description that was given to the police of the man coming down the stairs.
Oh, fuck.
So the day after this incident, police found out that another young apartment manager lady, also had a run-in with a man matching this description, who was asking specifically about second-story rentals.
Ooh.
He was asking about whether or not there was anybody living next door or underneath these vacant ones.
Okay, gotcha.
Which Phyllis was murdered in their own apartment.
Yeah, which is kind of strange. Maybe if this was the same guy, maybe he realized he cut it really close, because if the husband came home shortly after, it seems like this guy is just doing it in broad daylight.
Right. Yeah, all of these incidents are taking place in between 7 a.m. and 12 p.m. So these are all like earlier morning.
Right.
Before people really were starting to come out or get off work or anything.
And maybe apartments were different back then, where maybe they did have people on call, and maybe the managers didn't like stay in the offices all day, you know what I mean? Like, I would assume.
Well, I do know that because of these two cases, I can't remember who like the heads the department of apartments, but somebody who gives the rules to the apartment offices and managers. After these cases took place, they did just begin requiring people's identification in order to come see the apartment. So they didn't even have that in place whenever this was going on.
That's right. I forgot. I haven't lived in an apartment since 2014. So like, I don't even remember the way, like, but yeah, you do. You have to have your ID and stuff. I forgot about that.
Identification and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They didn't even have at the time that these were taking place where you even had to show who you were.
Right. That's crazy.
So this other lady, whose name is also unknown, she was approached by a man who was asking about the second-story rentals. She started getting a bad vibe from him again. And so she was walking around, opening the doors for him, telling him, like, go ahead and, take a look. I'll stay out here. And just refusing to enter with him. She said that he started getting noticeably upset. And after she showed him about, like, 4 units, he just, like, left. He just walked out, left, didn't say anything to her, didn't look at her, and just, like, heatedly walked off.
Ooh, that gives me the fucking chills,
Yeah.
man. Ugh.
Yeah. On July 30th, which was about 1 week after Martha Reed's death, police just began canvassing like all of the apartment complexes in Austin, just doing anything because they had absolutely fucking nothing to go on. The chief of police pleaded in the newspapers that if anyone had even a suspicion of somebody that they know who could have committed these crimes, to please come forward. They were offering a $5,000 reward for any information leading up to the arrest of a suspect for these cases. They received 33 tips, which did create some leads, but ultimately they didn't lead anywhere.
Oh, that's gotta be so frustrating because somebody knows this guy.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Police also decided that the sketch of the suspect, fuck it. Like, this could be fucking anybody. Like, don't look for a specific race, look into anybody. So they really, like, were trying as hard as they could to track down somebody on this case.
That's dangerous, though. It's like, that's why innocent people end up in prison. It's because the police get they get so much pressure brought on them from the mayor and other city officials that to solve a case. Literally, we'll take anybody.
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that. So ultimately, the trails grew cold. No one was ever found in relation to these murders, but in December of 1975, police received a total of 8 calls from young apartment complex managing women, stating that a man with a Latin American accent would call between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m., claiming that they needed to come to the laundry room because there was a woman who was hurt.
Ooh.
Like, trying to lure them into more desolate areas of the apartments. None of the 8 women who called the police believed this person, luckily. But no woman was ever found to be injured in the laundromat in relation to these calls.
And they didn't have fucking caller ID back then. Or
Exactly. No one was ever arrested or questioned surrounding these calls either. They never found out who did it.
Right.
And then they did find also a team of 2 younger black men who were coming to apartment complex offices. One of them would express interest in renting an apartment, and while being shown the apartments, the other would enter the office and ransack it and take money or whatever other valuables.
That's not murder.
Yeah, that was the only real lead that they had in these cases, but I mean, obviously, like, the motive there was robbery. Like, neither of these men murdered anybody. Like, nothing got out of hand. This was expressly an individual who did these crimes. And the fact that I mentioned earlier is that someone else who I had covered this season, Deborah Sue Reading, her murder took place within a 2-block radius of these crimes.
But she was sexually sexually assaulted.
Yeah, she was sexually assaulted. So she was the one who, like, 20, 40 years later, her coworker was arrested and the charges were dropped.
I really think it was her coworker.
I really do. I do too, but I just think it's interesting. And these...
No, that's super interesting.
Also happened off of, like, I-35. So they were pretty close to I-35 as well.
That guy was a serial killer.
Right.
He knew what he was doing. He probably... I wonder if we're gonna... I wonder if there's any more in Texas like that.
Yeah.
Not just Austin. He probably got picked up for something else in the 70s, for whatever petty shit. But
I will also say that I don't really have my notes together for her, but
Yeah.
there was another lady who, like, hardly anything has been posted in the media regarding her case, except for very recently. But there was another lady, Vicky Palmer, who June 7th of 1977 was working as a bookkeeper at the Tiger Corporation Waste Management Company, which this was on Shoal Creek. But she left work at 11:30 complaining of like knee pain, but she was actually going to her apartment home in South Austin to change for a job interview. So at around like 12:15, a neighbor of hers saw her come home. And about 5 minutes later, she thought she saw her leaving the apartment, but she said that the woman leaving had her face covered with a brown paper bag.
What?
And then all of a sudden, the neighbors smelled smoke at around like 12:40. Someone had intentionally burned Vicky Palmer's apartment. Like set it on fire.
Are you telling me that somebody went in there, killed her, set her fucking apartment on fire, and dressed in drag and ran out?
Yeah, dressed in drag, put a bag over their head, and left. So there was no evidence of rape in Vicky's case as well.
Was she stabbed?
I'm trying to find out because I really did not have my.
Oh my God, this is blowing my mind. I didn't know there were so many cases like this in Austin.
Because it doesn't even say. Autopsy shows that there was no smoke inhalation.
What a trippy episode this is.
Oh. I don't know.
Well, we can revisit her later too. You know what I mean? But like, wow. That is nuts. And she was in South Austin too.
She was in South Austin also. Now, in her case, she was actually like onto some shady shit that her work had going on. She had found some evidence of financial embezzlement that she was looking into. So there may have been another motive for her murder there.
For her death. Yeah.
But I mean, that also was pretty close to where these women were found. So
what a coincidence. But I mean, if you're a trained killer, let's say if you're a hitman, like that is smart to dress up like as a woman or in her clothes and running out like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always thought like if I was going to rob a bank or commit a crime, I would like, first of all, I'd get like 5 pairs of Spanx, make myself look way skinnier. Like wear like 7-inch heels so people think I'm like over 5'1". You know?
Yeah.
Like, just or like
do it up.
Yeah, do it up and like maybe dress as a man, you know? So they're looking for a completely different person. No, I'm so glad we decided to do cold cases in Austin. I mean, I feel like we were getting more listens with the Lady Bird Lake stuff, but like I feel like this is something that we could possibly help more with.
Because a lot of these cases, you know, as crime continues to happen, just like with Phyllis Butto, like police departments have to kind of shift their God, why am I fucking brain dead?
Yeah, they have to shift their focus.
Yeah, they have to shift their have to shift their focus on shit that they could potentially.
Right. And also, and we know from just working with Margolin with the missing person stuff, like they only have one detective for missing people in Austin.
Yeah.
So if they only have one person for missing people, one detective, how many fucking homicide detectives do they actually have?
Right.
Not a lot, I don't think. And cold cases, forget about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, man, so this case that I have is actually pretty interesting too, and it's still cold. But this took place in Houston, outside of Houston, on August 22nd, 1990. The bodies of 22-year-old Cheryl Henry and her boyfriend, 21-year-old Garland Andy Atkinson, were found in an undeveloped wooded area of western Harris County where young people often went to park and kiss. It was affectionately known as Lover's Lane.
All right. Hey, if you're going to
Um,
kiss, it might as well be
yeah.
with a lover.
Yeah, on Lover's Lane.
Yeah.
Andy was found tied to a tree and nearly decapitated. Detectives told his father that Cheryl was killed first, which means he was tied to a tree and listened to her scream, listened to her being murdered, knowing that that they were going to do the same thing to him, and he couldn't do anything about it. Garland Atkinson said, "That's hard to accept."
Honestly, that would be like the worst. Like, kill me, okay, but if I had to listen to, like, I don't even want to think about it.
So Cheryl was also like sexually assaulted. So he had to hear her being sexually assaulted and then murdered. Like, and yeah, I think that's like that. And then on top of that, the anticipation of knowing that you're next.
Yeah.
Oh, the killer used Andy's golf balls and golf club to point the way to Cheryl's naked body found hidden under wooden boards, a $20 bill lying nearby.
God.
So Cheryl had been sexually assaulted and her throat was also slashed. Billy Belk, a now retired Houston police detective, spent 20 years trying to solve the case. This case stayed with me because it's one of the few cases that I never cleared. It's like I left unfinished business when I retired, Belk said in 2013. On the night of their murder, Andy and Cheryl were with her sister at a bar called Bayou Mama's nightclub. When Cheryl didn't come home by the next morning, her family called Houston police. Different accounts say Andy's car was found by a security guard, and others say his car was found by a Cisco truck driver. Either way, inside of Andy's car, they found Cheryl's shoes and purse before finding their bodies. Billy Belk had his theories of who could have done such a heinous crime. Sometimes I think they were targeted. Cheryl was tied up more than Andy was, even though he was tied to a tree. She put up a fight, Belk said. Sometimes I wonder if there are 2 or 3 suspects. Belk traveled around the country trying to find the suspect. He compared DNA samples found at the crime scene with that of known criminals. I would say at least 25 potential suspects' DNAs. I would say DNAs. There's only one DNA. I would say that at least 25 potential suspects' DNA has been compared, Belk said, but all were ruled out. KHOU 11, a Houston news station, also dug up a report by FBI profilers. Here are some of their theories. The suspect may have known Cheryl or Andy or both. He was about the age of the victims. He had above average intelligence, but was a low achiever. Police may have interviewed him at one time. That's pretty common, I feel like, when it's...
definitely.
Mm-hmm. It also states that the covering of Cheryl's body speaks of a prior personal relationship and that the suspect may not have intentionally meant to kill Andy. I don't know, because, I mean, he almost decapitated him.
Yeah, I would think that's pretty fucking, like...
Yeah, intentional, but
yeah.
What do I know? The week after he retired, Belk got the call that he'd been waiting 17 years for. DNA evidence from semen found in Cheryl's body had been matched to DNA collected in the unsolved 1990 rape of a 30-year-old exotic dancer who worked at Gigi's, a topless club on Northwest Freeway. This is when it gets really, really interesting, okay? So Cheryl, at the time of her death, worked at a similar club called Rick's Cabaret. Which was on Bering, about 8 miles away from Gigi's, where the sexual assault took place. Andy's father managed another gentleman's club, which at the time was called Dream Street, where Andy often worked the bar, and that was also about 2 miles away from Rick's Cabaret and about 5 miles from Gigi's. So if you look on the map, it's kind of like a triangle. They're all in the same vicinity of each other.
Right.
The fact that the person who did that, like, left the $20 bill.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that sounds like something like, I feel like he knew both Andy and Cheryl.
Right, exactly.
In 1990, the woman told police she left her job at Gigi's nightclub and went to her boyfriend's house in Northwest Houston. A man showed up and said he was looking for the boyfriend who owed him money. Then he pounced. The attacker put her hands behind her back and wrapped them in duct tape. He also covered her eyes and mouth with tape and put a bag over her head. She said he then kept pulling the trigger, taunting her as he cocked it and uncocked it over and over and over. So I guess
that's terrifying.
Yeah. I guess he had a gun and he was like pointing it at her head and like just that's
horrible.
And she lived, so she's still probably, I mean, like, could you like living through that and then like the PTSD that would come from something like that? That's
that's
torturous.
Fucking awful.
Terrible.
Hope she's okay.
I know, and I hope this motherfucker like gets caught.
Yeah.
The victim described the rapist as late 20s to mid 30s, about 6 feet tall, 180 pounds, with black hair and an olive complexion. He had a black fishnet stocking over his head, wore black gloves, a dark shirt, and dark pants, possibly a uniform. She said he had a very forceful military-type stance. Eventually, the woman's attacker took $250 from her purse, disconnected her phone, and left. Okay, so I'm thinking this guy knew who she was, knew that her boyfriend was out of town.
Yeah.
I think he was like a patron of like
of the cabaret,
of all of them. Yeah, of where Andy worked, of where this girl, you know, the victim, the 1990 victim, worked, where Cheryl worked. I think he knew all of them.
No, I would definitely agree. So it had to be someone with like a bit of income to be going to those places and like throwing money around, I would think.
Absolutely. I mean, he took $250 from this unknown woman, but I mean, he could have done that just to throw off the police.
Yeah.
You know, looking for a burglary that went wrong or whatever. The victim helped famed HPD sketch artist Lois Gibson create a sketch of her attacker, which was also aged to depict what he might have looked like in 2008. In the 90s, in the 90s, DNA testing was still very new and expensive to run. It would take the police department 17 years before the investigators would run the DNA and find the match to the Lovers Lane's murder. The Houston Police Department eventually located the first victim in Galveston County, and upon interviewing her, they found another link. The woman at one point in time had worked for Andy's dad.
Really?
Yeah, so, I mean, obviously that's what I'm saying is, like, they're all so connected, like, there's no way that this was just, like, an anonymous...
Random.
I mean, they may...
Yeah.
Right. They may not have known him well, but I guarantee you they knew him from the club. Like, I'm sure that they, you know... Even with all the new information and interesting connections and DNA evidence, the case still remains unsolved because the perpetrator's DNA isn't in the system. I think they're hoping that, like, they can catch him through familia DNA.
Yeah, like the
like the Golden State Killer.
Right.
So if you are listening
and you're taking a DNA test offline.
Yeah, if you're a listener,
if you're interested in your genealogy,
go get your DNA tested so we can catch, maybe you might have a killer in your family. I don't know. I probably do.
Mine's guaranteed.
Yeah. Oh, are you kidding? With your biological father? Hell yeah. I know it.
I know it.
If you can help with this case or any other unsolved cases, please contact Houston Police Department's Cold Case Squad or Crime Stoppers at 713-222-TIPS 8477. And that's that.
That's fucking insane.
Is that crazy? I mean, like, how are they all
connected like that?
I guarantee you this guy, like, I know he didn't stop with just Cheryl and Andy.
Right. Especially
Right.
because, like, that industry is so, like, people become so infatuated.
Yeah, they do. They really do. Wow, this was a good episode.
I
Really good
know. This
episode.
episode just had a lot of connections and just,
It did.
yeah.
It did.
It's mind-boggling to think that they remain unsolved, but
For how long? I know, but I
yeah.
mean if you look at the Ladybird Lake drownings and stuff, like, is it amazing that they're this unsolved for this
Oh,
long? Because,
okay.
like,
Well, true.
like, but
Okay, yeah. All
yeah,
right.
right. But it does seem like back in the 70s there was more attention to cases,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I think that they actually like tried to do their best. I mean,
I think
for
so
the
too.
time, but at that time they just didn't have a lot to work with. They didn't
Yeah,
technology wasn't as advanced and
right.
stuff like
Right.
that. And I feel like I feel like we saw during last season with the Lady Bird Lake cases, it just seems now like it's a lot of like we'll start, but we're really reaching out to hope that you guys can finish.
Yep, I agree. I think they, like, with the Ladybird Lake cases especially, it's like it's kind of like a perfect storm. It's not enough people working the cases, and not enough funding
Yeah.
for the proper equipment to make, or an autopsy for the men that were found drowned. And then also just like the city of Austin just not taking responsibility in their part of keeping the lake safe, or the area down by the lake safe.
Right.
I know we keep saying this every couple episodes, but, like, it is amazing that we haven't found anybody else in the lake. So knock on wood, like, I feel like we're doing pretty good with that. With that, I guess let's go ahead and do the missing person.
All right.
All right. So, this week's missing person is a woman named Erica Flores. She was born on November 1979. She's 43 years old. She is Hispanic. She has brown eyes, but she may have colored contacts. She has black hair. She's 5'8". She's 150 pounds. She likes to wear a bandana or a wig. She's driving a 2010 blue-green Mazda 3. The Texas plates are PLY 1656. Her car is uninsured, and she is driving with a possible suspended license. She has an atrophied arms and legs.
What is
May
atrophied?
loss of muscle, basically.
Oh, okay.
So, like, thinner arms and legs. She may have two dogs in the vehicle, a German Shepherd named Rebel and an American Pit Bull named Chico. And she may be seen with an Asian American male, 50 years plus, black hair, by way of California, covered with tattoos on both arms, likes to carry various assortments of knives on person, may be seen as unauthorized driver of Mazda 3. This seems like a pretty dire case.
Yeah.
If you see her, if you can contact the Austin Police Department, her family is missing her, so we'll try to help her as much as we can. And I think that concludes our
episode.
Our episode.
Our little
sorry.
episode.
Our little episode. Sorry it was late, but we were busy.
Oh, we were busy as fuck.
I know. I have to get off here and start working.
I know. I really have to start working on the house because I haven't time.
Time is not on our side. No, it's not. It's not. Ain't on nobody's side.
What is that movie with Denzel Washington and like they play that song and it's like jumping from person to person? Do you know what I
mean? No.
Do you know what I mean?
No. I know that Denzel Washington was hot. He was a very good looking man, but that's about it. Okay, if you do like our episode, if you do like our podcast, you can follow us on Instagram.
It's Nosey Nancies.
Yep. And you can also join our Facebook group and our page. You can follow our page on Facebook as well.
It's Nosey Nancies Podcast, and the page is Nosey Nancies
Podcast.
They're both podcasts?
Yeah, Nosey Nancy's podcast.
All right. Well, they're both Nosey Nancy's podcast. That makes it easy.
Also, if you do like our podcast, if you don't mind like sharing it and giving us a rating on Spotify or whatever platform you use to listen to us, because it does help us be heard by other people, hopefully in the city of Austin or around the city of Austin, so we can get some of these cases like out in the open. That would be very much appreciated.
5 stars, please.
5 stars. Yeah. Anything less and you're dead to us.
Yeah. We're cutting you off. Blocking you.
We're cutting you off. Blocked. You can also... What else do we have? Well, we have TikTok. We don't really get on TikTok. There. Oh, yeah. If you have any, like, if you have a story or if you have somebody that is missing or you need help with something or you want to just tell us stuff, if you just want to send us memes, I don't care. You could do that through our email. It's noseynancies@gmail.com. That's NOSEYNANCIES@gmail.com. And I think that's like basically it.
That's basically it for this one. That was crazy. It was a crazy one.
I just want to say real quick, thanks to Zach and Amanda again for coming in last episode, because that was a fucking trip too.
Yeah, that was incredible. You guys did amazing. I'm excited for the next special.
All right.
C'est la vie, ma